All right, everybody, welcome back to part B of day 19. And we are picking up in the book of Matthew, chapter 16, verses 21 through 28. Let's get down to it. So Jesus is making some really bold statements, especially for the time and, for their faith system back then. And I would have to say, well, I'm just not going to say that. All right, let's keep going. So we're in chapter 16 and we're picking up verse 21 through 28. Let's go. Verse 21. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. Now, if they had a time stomaching all that other stuff, I can't even, well, let's continue on. No spoiler alerts. We just read it, though, in Mark. So let's continue on. Verse 22, Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. Never, Lord, he said, this shall never happen to you. Verse 23, Jesus turned and said to Peter, get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. Verse 24, then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. Verse 25, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. Verse 26, what good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? Verse 27, for the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done. Verse 28, truly, I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. And I think I addressed that on the last recording, so I'm not going to babble on about that. Babylon. All right, we're going to Luke. And we're picking up chapter 9, verses 21 through 27. I hope everyone's enjoying this so far, and I don't know any other way than just to read it. And I hope it brings, the words are life itself, they are living. And I've always been a fan of examining words. I'm with you, Candace Owens. I like that. Just, a long time ago on my first TikTok account, I came up with QCY, Queen Connell's word of the day. Let's keep going. Book of Luke, chapter 9, starting at verse 21 through 27. And he straitly charged them and commanded them to tell no man that thing. Verse 22, saying, the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected of the elders and chief priests and scribes and be slain and be raised the third day. Verse 23, and he said to them all, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. Verse 24, for whosoever will save his life shall lose it. But whosoever will lose his life for my sake, the same shall save it. Verse 25, for what is a man advantaged if he gains the whole world and lose himself or be cast away? Verse 26, for whosoever shall be ashamed of me and my words, of him shall the Son of Man be ashamed when he shall come in his own glory and in his fathers and of the holy angels. Verse 27, but I tell you of a truth, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the kingdom of God. That is truly beautiful. All right, let's keep going. So now we're going back to Mark chapter 9, verse 2 through 13. I'll try to stop hitting that microphone at some point. I've got a new boom arm, by the way, so this should, we're going to attach it directly to my desk, and eventually we're going to be getting a desk like this, but larger. We have a plan. And seeing as, we have to work with the budget that we have. My good husband works so hard, not only on the 40-hour a week job that he does, career, I should say. He's done it his whole life. But also he sewed a lot of money into this, and I thank him for it. Big Russ. All right. This is Rosie. All right, good. Can I finish the recording? All right. So we're in the book of Mark, chapter 9, verses 2 through 13. She and I are starting a book club too. Well, she's excited about it. I'm excited about it too. All right. Let's keep going. So book of Mark, chapter 9, verses 2 through 13. This is the NIV, New International Version. Version. All right. Oh, it's 2 through 13. Beg your pardon. After 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him and led them up a high mountain where they were all alone. There he was transfigured before them. Verse 3, his clothes became dazzling white, whiter than anyone in the world could bleach them. Verse 4, and there appeared before them Elijah and Moses, who were talking with Jesus. Verse 5, Peter said to Jesus, Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Verse 6, parentheses, he did not know what to say. They were frightened, parentheses closed. Verse 7, then a cloud appeared and enveloped them, and a voice came from the cloud. This is my son, whom I love. Listen to him. I should have put the echoey voice on there. I might play with that one day. Verse 8, suddenly, when they looked around, they no longer saw anyone with them except Jesus, but they thought they were out of their minds. Verse 9, as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus gave them orders not to tell anyone what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. Verse 10, they kept the matter to themselves, discussing what rising from the dead meant. Verse 11, and they asked him, why do the teachers of the law say that Elijah must come first? Verse 12, Jesus replied, to be sure, Elijah does come first and restores all things. Why then is it written that the Son of Man must suffer much and be rejected? Verse 13, but I tell you, Elijah has come, and they have done to him everything they wished, just as it is written about him. And guys, just so you know, we will be reading that once we launch RBYI. See, read the Bible in a year chronologically. It's RTIBYAC, something like that. I'll play around with it, hopefully make it roll off the tongue easier. All right, so we're going back to Matthew, and then we're going to close out with Luke. So we're going to Matthew chapter 17, verses 1 through 13. Sorry about coughing in your ears, guys. All right, chapter 17, verses 1 through 13. Let's get this jolly party started. I can't wait to get my new boom arm. I think it's going to, I don't know, I'm going to figure it out. I've been watching other content creators trying to glean ideas from them. All right, so chapter 17, verse 1. After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. Verse 2, there he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. I think, and that's the closest they could come to describing the color, right? Verse 3, just then there appeared before them Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus. Verse 4, Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Verse 5, while he was still speaking, a bright cloud covered them, and a voice from the cloud said, I'm going to try the voice thing, and let's see if I can. Let's see. This is my son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. So that was pretty awesome. I wonder what I don't know what that's going to sound like on the playback, but I'm sure it was much more powerful than that coming from God. Let's keep going, guys. So, I love that. All right. So, verse 6, when the disciples heard this, they fell face down to the ground, terrified. But Jesus came and touched them. Get up, he said. Don't be afraid. Verse 8, when they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus. Verse 9, as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus instructed them, don't tell anyone what you have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. Verse 10, the disciples asked him, why then do the teachers of the law say that Elijah must come first? Verse 11, Jesus replied, to be sure, Elijah comes and will restore all things. Verse 12, but I tell you, Elijah has already come, and they did not recognize him, but have done to him everything they wished. In the same way, the Son of Man is going to suffer at their hands. Verse 13, then the disciples understood that he was talking to them about John the Baptist. All right, guys, final reading. Book of Luke, chapter 9, verses 28 through 36. So just 8 verses. And we wrap up day 19, guys. All right. Let's get to it. King James Version, chapter 9, verses 28 through 36. Let's go, guys. And it came to pass about 8 days after these sayings, he took Peter and John and James and went up into a mountain to pray. Verse 29, and as he prayed, the fashion of his countenance was altered, and his raiment was white and glistening. Verse 30, and behold, there talked with him 2 men, which were Moses and Elias. Verse 31, who appeared in glory and spake of his decease, which he should accomplish at Jerusalem. Verse 32, but Peter and they that were with him were heavy with sleep. And when they were awake, they saw his glory and the 2 men that stood with him. Verse 33, and it came to pass, as they departed from him, Peter said unto Jesus, Master, it is good for us to be here. And let us make 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elias, not knowing what he said. Verse 34, while he thus spake, there came a cloud and overshadowed them, and they feared as they entered into the cloud. Verse 35, and there came a voice out of the cloud saying, this is my beloved Son, hear him. Verse 36, and when the voice was past, Jesus was found alone, and they kept it close and told no man in those days any of those things which they had seen. They did as they were instructed. Wow, guys. All right. Thank you for joining me. This is part B of day 19. We'll go back to the live.